We've made a really big change. I think it was last year, I got the board to invest in doing some strategic planning. And their response was, we know what we need to do. We know who we are. We know what we're advocating for. Nothing's going to change. And I said, no, but let's try it anyway. So we worked with Cynthia Mills. We sat in a conference room one day, and our advocacy for many years, since the inception of the group 40 years ago, was about free and fair access to wire rod, which is our rod material to make wire. But the industry had changed so much, and really, free and fair access to wire rod is very, very unlikely these days. And so we really sat in that room and finally agreed to change our vision and mission to really be about how to have a resilient wire industry so that our member companies can be successful. And the way to do that is to work with the full supply chain.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Emily Bardash, Executive Director of the American Wire Producers Association, or AWPA. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joanna. It's so great to be here. I was thinking today about how long we've known each other, maybe 25 years. And I remember being across from you in the hall and on Fairfax Street and thinking what a cool company you had. If I remember correctly, you allowed dogs to come in with people. And
we did.
And you could paint your office whatever color you wanted to. So I just thought it was really cool what was happening over at Matrix.
Oh my God, Emily, you remember those things.
Yes, I do. It was very cool.
And for my listeners, do you remember you guys would judge the pumpkin carving contest every year?
Oh, I do. Yes.
Because we were on the same floor.
Yeah, and we were a very small staff, so you had more interesting things going on than we did.
The pumpkin carving contest was always fun because we always needed a judge.
Yes. Does it still exist or no?
So we do the pumpkin carving contest, but more virtually.
Okay.
Because, Emily, we got rid of our office last March.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So we still maintain 2 offices at a Regis in Arlington.
Oh.
But everyone else is really staying home. I go in maybe once a month. I just don't feel the need.
Wow.
And so we still have a space, but for the most part, during the pandemic, people spread out and we kept it that way. And so we said, why pay for the space?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Bold move, but that's great.
Emily, tell us about AWPA.
The American Wire Producers Association represents companies that manufacture wire and wire products. So our members are made up of the wire manufacturers as well as the suppliers. So think, big steel, takes big steel, puts it into a steel rod, bundles it up and ships it to our members who then use that steel rod to manufacture wire and wire products.
Emily, give us examples of these wire products and what do we use wire in?
Yeah, so it's a great question. When we're on the Hill, we're trying to get people up to speed with what we do. We talk about big bridge cables that are holding a big structure together down to a Windex bottle that has a small, tiny spring.
Oh,
I know, right? So you don't think about wire is everywhere, but it really, really is. And it affects so many different industries. I mean, think of your home alone. We're talking nails, shelving, any kind of construction materials, infrastructure, highways, bridges, power lines, even your everyday stuff like hangers and shopping carts, fencing, and then more big systems, elevators, cranes and pipelines. but also like medical devices and automotive parts. And again, just think about all the industries that touches construction, infrastructure, agriculture, defense. So if wire is not being produced, it's affecting several different industries of our economy.
Emily, is this a big industry and is it growing?
Well, it's funny because we think of big steel. Steel Manufacturing Association is the big association. We're a small part of that, and we've always operated very independently. We've changed that a little bit, though. We're trying to work with the entire supply chain. It is a small industry. We have about 85 members right now. It's shrinking. There are a lot of consolidations, a lot of family-owned businesses. So it's gotten a little bit smaller or stayed about the same.
But it sounds like an industry that's incredibly important, but almost hidden.
That's true. It is hidden. Yeah, again, I think our slogan on our website is "Wire is everywhere."
Right.
When we go to the Hill, we have to be really descriptive about how it is affecting so many parts of the economy. And that's kind of how we get their attention.
Well, we clearly have a lot to talk about when it comes to AWPA, but I want to talk about your journey. Like you said, we've known each other a long time. You've had a bit of a winding path. So how'd you get started?
Yeah. I graduated. We were just talking about college and graduating and what we wanted to do, but I graduated not really knowing what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting an interview at an association management company. I went in to interview for a receptionist position and walked out as administrative assistant of the American Women in the Metal Industries.
Oh, AWMI.
Yes, AWMI. And, there are thousands of women in the metal industry. So it introduced me to just something I had never thought of. The best part I thought was being in an office. I like people. I like working and doing things together. And being in an association management company allowed me to try a lot of different things. You start out in administration and database work and in the mailroom, but then you get to touch on membership and then meetings and then finance and advocacy and planning Hill days. And I think I found that I really, really liked it all. I've worked at 5 different association management companies. And it's interesting. I've actually never, besides my very first interview for the receptionist, I've never had a job interview. So one has led to another by way of a client or a boss. And I love what I do. I really do. It's interesting every single day, and I love working with people. So I, for several years, managed a group of female women lobbyists.
That was WGR. We worked together on that account.
Yeah.
Women in Government Relations.
Women in Government Relations. And at the time, I had 2 young kids. I wanted to be closer to home. Born and raised in Washington, D.C. By the way, my dad was a lobbyist, and my mother worked in associations and was a member of the group, the Capitol Steps.
Oh, my goodness. I've seen them.
Yes. So I wanted to be in Washington. My husband, oddly enough, we met in Ohio in college, but also from Washington. So young kids wanted to be home. So I really did want to work in a place where I wasn't traveling a lot. So I worked with women in government relations kind of on and off for 20 years, a professional society, had some great experiences there. But I also, at my first management firm, worked with the American Wire Producers Association as an administrator, and then ended up being their meeting planner. And I remember at the time, my boss, Kimberly, handed me a big notebook, a 3-ring notebook, and said, "Here's last year's meeting, figure it out." And to me, I loved that. I loved looking at how it was done, dissecting it, figuring out how I could do better systems. The planning was fun, and it was really thrilling to be on site. So kind of a focus early on the meeting side, but then really got the opportunity at a pretty young age and early in my career to be the executive director of Women in Government Relations. And again, took me to different management firms and allowed me to have other clients. So I really do prefer kind of a consulting structure where we're working with different associations and different teams doing the work that we do.
Okay, so that's a provocative statement, right?
Yeah.
Working with multiple clients, because correct me if I'm wrong, you're currently executive director of 3 associations.
I am.
So what's that like?
I've been with AMP Association Management for maybe 6 years now, and I think I've probably worked with 5 clients there. So right now, I've got 3 clients. I have often thought about going to a standalone and just focusing on one strategy, one set of minutes, all that kind of stuff. But I do like the back and forth between all the clients, between the staff. So there are 3 very small staff associations. I probably have 5 or 6 person per team. Or I think our management company does a really good job of, a meetings person, an accountant, education person. And even though they're on my teams, they also have cohorts of people that do what they do and learning from each other. So we've got about 45, 50 people at the company, and it's just a great culture. They have not only me as a resource, but these other teams and people who lead their department, so to speak. It is a challenge, and there are times when you're gone for a week doing a meeting and you are trying to keep up with your other clients. But I think it's a great opportunity or resource for small associations that don't have the budgets to have a full-time staff own a building. And the beauty of association management is while you do have a scope, it can flex pretty easily. So if you get a big project, you can staff up. If something happens, you can change the scope and kind of staff down. So especially good for strong associations. I feel incredibly lucky to be working with associations that came in and needed structure and support and growth.
Emily, I got a question for you. So you're managing 3 associations and you've got accountant, meeting planner, et cetera. Is it the same people or is it a different team at each association? Because that's kind of interesting. You might have 3 different staff, or are they similar?
Yeah, no, great question. There is some overlap, but they are primarily different teams. And it's good to have the same people, but it's also great to have people on my team that are doing communications, but that are doing communications under another leader or with another client. Because again, they're bringing in new ideas.
Do you manage all trade associations?
I am currently managing all trade associations. I grew up in the kind of professional societies, from advocacy and women in government relations to physical therapists. And it's like these groups, you get to know them, the people, and they're so passionate. At one point, I thought I should have been a physical therapist just because I love the people and the culture and the work they were doing. So mostly trade associations right now. I really like it. It's very, very different. And I think starting out in professional societies at a young age, it's very collaborative. You're getting lots of emails and calls, and you're constantly talking about what we should do next. You're showing up at the board meetings about, here's a situation, what are we going to do? Where the trade associations are very different. They are typically companies, and the people on the board are CEOs that really just want you to do the work and do the strategy.
Right. They hire you to do the work.
They hire you to do the work. And so I think the biggest change for me was honestly preparation for board meetings, because in a professional society, you're working together really more. At the trade association, I would describe something that was happening or a problem we would have, and they would say, what are we going to do about it? Emily, what are you going to do? And it was so different. And I think it was so fulfilling for me because I knew what to do. Going into it, I don't think I knew what to do. But now I am overly prepared for board meetings to make sure they all go correct. And I think that's part of the job that's most fulfilling for me.
Okay, so hang on. Matrix works with professional societies and trade associations. And you are right, they are different. We are much more likely to get called into a committee meeting when we're doing a project, but that would never happen at a trade association, right? Because usually the CEOs of the companies are saying, just get this done. What we find is that often the associations take on the culture of the profession. So if you're working with engineers, for example, it's a very precise association. The staff are very detail-oriented. They meet their deadlines, for example. So how do you navigate culture when you've got the culture of AMPT and then you've got the culture of the different associations? Does that ever, not that it would be a conflict, but does that give you whiplash a little bit?
Yeah, that's so interesting, actually. Well, my mind goes in a couple of places, but I have a new client and they keep referring to us as AMPT. And it drives me crazy because I want them to think of us as their staff. And so really trying to drive that culture of, the board knows we are a consulting firm, but the membership shouldn't know that. AMPT doesn't exist to the membership. And I think that delineation is really, really important. I'm lucky to be in a firm that has a great culture and is very, very different culture than a lot of these trade associations. I think a lot of the trade associations, because we're smaller, get caught up in, again, AWPA, like what's the Steel Manufacturers Association doing? Or with the physical therapists, like we ran a small group. And, it's like, well, what's APTA doing, the big group? And there is such a culture there, and trying to define the culture of the small group is very important. And we don't have to do it the way APTA is doing it or Big Steel is doing it. We have to create our own culture. But I agree, it's very, very different. And in fact, as an association management firm, we're always trying to do things better and more efficiently. And, we get a meeting planner 1 month and then we get a new meeting planner that comes in. And I keep talking about, we have to have a meetings brief that literally talks about where they like to go and the important things, but also whether the spouses are important.
Right.
AWPA, this is like one of those things that I keep telling the staff over and over again. We have to make the spouses happy. And nobody understood it.
Oh my God. With the trade associations, yes, the spouses are huge.
Yes.
The spouses of the board members are huge.
Exactly. And I finally said to the staff, and this is where it clicked, I'm like, when they're at a reception and the spouses are talking to each other, then it's easier for the members to have a conversation about business. So it's like a social conversation tied to business. And finally, something clicked. So every group is so different. Spouses is important to one group and not others.
But you have to navigate that between your clients, and you as the ED and your staff have to realize that. Like if you're asking about the spouse program to a group that doesn't care about it, they'll look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah. I think that's part of what's interesting. That's part of why I like switching back and forth. What's happening at a American wire producers meeting with the top CEOs of wire company and steel companies is very different than what's happening at a networking reception for the national air filtration industry, where engineers and salespeople, so you have to be a little bit of a chameleon and you have to coach your staff to be able to do the same thing.
Wow. One of my clients is Mike Copps from Aldo, and he was with an AMC and is now at a standalone association. And he said he misses the structure of the AMC because someone's taking care of payroll and HR. But he also said that it was really great to be able to go down the hall and talk to 5 other EDs. And even virtually, maybe you don't have that walking down the hall business anymore. But do you find that there's that collegiality between the different EDs at AMPT?
Absolutely. And I think some AMCs do this better than others. I think AMPT does it very, very well. We have 7 or 8 execs at our company, and we meet every 2 weeks virtually. Sometimes there's a topic planned, and sometimes it's just a session for us to ask questions.
That's awesome. You have a CEO roundtable every 2 weeks.
We have a CEO roundtable. And yeah, I feel blessed because, again, to me, I'm people, I'm collaboration. I'd like to learn from each other. Joanna, you and I caught up for 45 minutes before this call, and I think you solved 4 of my 5 major life problems, So to me, it is talking to people, and I get a lot out of the AMC structure. I really do.
Wow. Let's turn to AWPA. AWPA is a big advocacy organization. So what are your issues, and how do you advocate for them these days?
So AWPA has undergone quite a big change. I think what started it really is their executive director of 37 years left. So I came in and was really focused on governance and structure. And so they'd been strong in advocacy, but we looked at a lot of the meetings and a lot of things that we could improve. Advocacy, even though I managed a group of female advocates, we as a group did not do advocacy. So, and my dad was a lobbyist, but I had not done advocacy. So it was not a real comfortable space for me. So the first thing we did was hire a government relations consultant. And we work with Kelly Dry, and it's been a really great experience. They have those built-in relationships and they know what to do and know how to go to the Hill. So we've made a really big change. I think it was last year, I got the board to invest in doing some strategic planning. And their response was, we know what we need to do. We know who we are. We know what we're advocating for. Nothing's going to change. And I said, no, but let's try it anyway. So we worked with Cynthia Mills. We sat in a conference room one day, and our advocacy for many years, since the inception of the group 40 years ago, was about free and fair access to wire rod, which is our rod material to make wire. But the industry had changed so much, and really, free and fair access to wire rod is very, very unlikely these days. And so we really sat in that room and finally agreed to change our vision and mission to really be about how to have a resilient wire industry so that our member companies can be successful. And the way to do that is to work with the full supply chain.
This sounds like a big change.
It is a big change. And we talked about it for a really long time, but we weren't doing it. We were just saying, oh, well, we kind of don't care about free trade anymore, but we weren't doing it. And so I think this strategic planning gave us a space to all sit down and agree to it. Now, it's still very, very tricky. Half of our members are wire producers. Half of our members are rod suppliers. They don't always agree. So when you're trying to make decisions on how to move forward and your membership is kind of divided, it's really, really difficult. So we believe that we're taking a different approach by really focusing on the whole supply chain and where we fit in, and then partnering with those groups rather than standing alone and saying, look at us. I mean, we're a very, very small industry. So we're trying to work really hard on telling our story, on inviting members of Congress to our facilities and showing what we're doing, how many people we're employing. And that's really made a big difference. So showing them and then telling the story of what we do and the impact that we have. So that's been a big change, is the strategic plan. And again, it is tricky. I think right now we're in a position where we have tariffs. And you would think that our members would be pro-tariff because it keeps their customers purchasing their wire products in the United States. But the reality is they have raw material too. And several companies feel that there's not enough available raw material in the United States and that it's so expensive.
Right. So if you're importing rod to make wire hangers, you're getting really nailed by the tariffs.
Exactly. But even with the tariffs and the higher pricing, they have to go overseas, and it's less expensive than buying it in the U.S. So the administration is working hard to kind of level the playing field and make U.S. manufacturing grow. But there are so many loopholes of how this works and doesn't work. And so it's complicated, and we're trying to keep our pulse on it. But again, trying to work with the whole supply chain to really make an impact.
Wow. So you're trying to thread the needle between the different interests of the members. All right. Well, I don't envy you that. Emily, you just had your annual conference. That was back in February. How'd it go, and what's new at conference?
Yeah, it was great. So I've done a lot of meetings for the AWPA. So I was the meeting planner for 5 years, very junior in my career, and I've been back as the executive director for about 5 years. And so what's different about this year is it feels like we have more momentum. We have 85 company members, which is a lot for us. And through this strategy session, I think that we also allowed ourselves to take some risks. So this whole meeting actually was a risk for us. We decided we were going to go to Florida. We were going to stay at a very nice hotel. We were going to have the best golf, and we were going to enjoy it. I was very concerned about smaller companies not being able to afford it or come and feeling like they shouldn't be spending this kind of money. We had the strongest attendance we have had in many, many years.
So normally you don't go to the fanciest places in Florida and San Diego, et cetera?
We go to nice resorts. Florida has become very, very expensive, and we have not been to Florida in a while. But we decided to have a room rate that was maybe $150 higher than what we usually do. It was a huge risk.
And what was the strategy behind it? Why go there? Was it to create something memorable? Like, what's the strategy?
Yeah, I think it was. I think the board wants to go to nice places. They want to bring their spouses to nice places. They want to have their customers in nice places. And we've had great meetings, but East Coast is the better place for us. Florida's expensive, and we wanted to do it right. And again, I think it's something that as an executive director, I tossed and turned over for weeks. And then finally the president was like, what are you doing? Let's just do this and sign this contract and move on. And like I said, highest attendance, sponsors showed up supporting us. We had some great speakers in addition to having a higher room rate and more expensive food and beverage, coffee for $150. We also secured a speaker, Ambassador Lighthizer, who used to be United States Trade Representative. So our speaker budget used to be $5,000 per meeting. I think I've got it up to $20,000 now, but we had already spent $20,000 on speakers. And then this opportunity came to us for Ambassador Lighthizer to speak because he lives in Florida. So Kelly Dry helped us secure this really, really good speaker. And I won't be specific about how much he cost, but it was way outside our scope and budget. But we did it. It was an amazing session. We did some great communications around his speech and everything. He left so quickly, and I had to chase him down in the parking lot with my board chair to get a picture of him, of them together. But again, I think we're allowing ourselves to take some risks, to ask our sponsors for more money to make something more memorable, whether it's a speaker or a hotel. So it felt really, really good.
This is fascinating. I think that on the one hand, Emily, I'm hearing from some clients and guests on the podcast who say, wow, we really have to tighten our belts. Not that you didn't do that with this meeting, but you created something different with this meeting. You took a risk, but also you created something that was different enough that more people said, what's happening? I want to be part of it. And then it sounds like it was really special.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, before the meeting, we had 80 members. After the meeting, we had 85. So members don't come and go a lot in our industry. This showed the momentum that we have. We also lost a rod supplier member last year that was one of the biggest in the industries because they were focused on other industries that they were in. And so they decided to not have their AWPA membership for 2 years, and we got them back this year. And they were there and they were present and sponsoring, and now they're on the board. So it does feel like there is a swell of momentum that we're riding right now. I think the other thing is, we were talking about association management companies and how you can ramp up when you need to. We really wanted to share our story and do a better job at that. So we now have a communications person on our team, and we're doing more on LinkedIn. We're just improving our everyday email. We're telling our story. So again, one of our companies does a facility tour with a member of Congress. We're promoting that more. We also, this is such a simple thing, but we hired a photographer and a videographer to actually show people what it's like to be at the AWPA meetings. Like, we have such a strong culture.
Oh, God, huge.
Yeah. So it's hard to imagine, but there are the same people on the board that there were when I was there 25 years ago. It's a strong culture, but it's hard to know what those meetings are like without being there. So we invested time and money into that and have been putting snippets and videos on our website, on social media. And it's made a difference. And our LinkedIn has grown tremendously. So it's just exciting to see some of that happening.
Emily, what I'm hearing is that you've got momentum, you're showcasing the momentum, and as a result, people want to be part of AWPA.
I think that's right.
Well, you've got this momentum. What's 2026 going to look like?
Yeah. I was just talking with our lobby firm about that. I don't know, but I think we're on a great path. I think we have a great strategy. Our strategic planning gives us 5 years out, but we're still focused on the first year, 2026, and some of the great momentum we've had. We historically have gone to the Hill once a year to do advocacy work. We are now investing time into going a couple of times a year. So not just our advocacy day, but small groups that are going to Hill and visiting with the United States Trade Representative or their members of Congress just to keep those relationships going. And we've seen huge momentum there. So definitely more advocacy, more innovations on meetings, and continuing to do the work we do with a great staff that we have and great partners like Matrix.
Hey, one last question. At the end of the strategic planning session, did the board members realize the value of the process?
They absolutely did. Even the person that I thought would be hardest to impress, he was relaxed, invigorated, really, really excited. We had an incredible person helping us, Cynthia Mills, and the work that she did and walked us through all the data she had gathered was incredible. So I think it was eye-opening for them. And again, it's created a spark. So I started to try to do this 3 years ago. It took me 3 years to get them to do it. And it's made a whirlwind of difference. And now I have a playbook to work off of rather than trying to reinvent the wheel every year.
Emily, great story. Thank you for being on the podcast. We'll have to have you back because we got to track how you're doing against your strategic plan.
That sounds great, Joanna. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends.